Hello, and welcome to At Your End Step. My name is Morgan, and I'm with Mike.
Hello.
And we have another fun-filled episode for you folks this week. Lots of stuff happening in the Magic community. We have the, of course, Core Set 2020 spoilers, coming out pretty fast and furious.
Whee!
I know we just got over Modern Horizons, but I
Just got over it. Okay, we just got over it. Yeah, the set released this weekend. But...
we just got over the spoilers, I guess. The discussion of the cards being individually released.
Yep.
For public viewing.
That's all they're for. They're not for playing. They're for viewing.
No, you just look at them.
Look at these cards. That's why they put the art cards in there.
But so it's weird because you're right. Like the actual set just came out in paper, but on Magic Online, it's existed for like 2 weekends because we've had 2 modern challenges.
Man, you're right. 2 whole weekends. Put it to bed.
But I'm just saying, like, it's weird because we've already seen the impacts of subtle, like some of the impacts of what the cards.
Yeah, some of the impacts. Like you're seeing. There's a whole bunch to talk about there.
Yeah.
So like,
I'm just saying, it's like the releases being staggered, and us
the Reese's monkeys,
and us like having the cards in different spaces, in different ways. It feels like this set has been out longer than it actually has. If that makes any sense.
I disagree with you, but sure.
But before we get into any of that discussion, we do want to make sure we talk about our Patreon. It's patreon.com/atyourendstep. You can go there and become one of our patrons. Like we have so many, and we appreciate every single one of them for assisting us with making the show. You can join any tier. And again, we've actually had some Patreon exclusive content released to there. We had our Mike's Book Nook. So if you are interested in finishing out that series, once we get around to recording the third episode here soon, you can definitely check that out. I've heard that the email things are good.
He was like, I haven't read them yet because I don't want to read them in my email.
I know, but I've heard they're better than the novel.
No, that's fair.
So I think we'll have to read them.
I will. I'll probably wait till they're all together and I'll collate them into a 3D binder, like a little 3-ring binder, and I'll read them that way.
Sure, fair enough. So let's get started here with talking about Core Set 2020 and all of the cards that we've seen so far. Talk a little bit about some of the cards as well as some other things that are going to be going on, along with the set coming out.
Yeah, we could do that in reverse order. I just was shooting the link here. There's a bunch of changes for this. I want to mention, I guess, starting off here with Core Set shifting in their design a little bit, and so in the past it's either been like around it is around a character this time, but normally it's like a return. It's been a returning keyword that's not evergreen. So we've had Convoke, we've had Exalted, we've had these things. They have switched courses on that. They are no longer going to bring back a non-evergreen keyword. They really want this to, going back to the idea of this being a ramping product. They really want to ramp up with that now. I think that's interesting. I don't know how you felt about that, Morgan. And we could talk about how they said that, but they've also made some other design choices in this set. Hello, protection from colors, that go back and forth. But the ramping is nice. But I wonder how that changes with the arena. Like the way arena set up. Is there a way to ramp? Like, does the core set actually ramp an arena? I guess if you go on a draft only the core set, then sure. But you won't even be able to do that for 2 weeks after the release of the set normally.
As far as ranked draft,
I thought no, you can only play sealed. There's no draft for the first.
That could be true.
No, that's consistently true because they don't have bots for it. They have to take the MTGO bot data, like the MTGO draft data, to design the bots to draft.
That's true. Yeah.
So I don't know. That is a little. Obviously, it's still for paper and that's good and for stores. But it is interesting to me they feel the need for this ramp product, to call it that, just because they work so hard with the open houses and all these things that is summertime the time to get new Magic players?
Yes, I think so. Kids are out of school, right?
Kids are out of school, and that's the most compelling argument. But weather also suggests that maybe I'm not going to spend my time inside playing cards. And I don't know how. Again, they're also dealing internationally, so I'm sitting here in Ohio being follow my seasons, but that doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I just think I'm sure a lot of their base is obviously based in the United States, where it's summer, where kids have a lot of free time, and I think they're just basing it off of free time and when they've
Our
always
awesome
done it.
agrarian calendar.
Yeah, it's just when they've always done it. Too,
Yeah, sure.
No,
I wonder like how successful the ramping part of it is when they already have planeswalker decks, and again, like open houses and these days for these things. Like I don't know. I don't know how much more successful the core set is at doing that.
I mean, like, I don't really care if they don't have an evergreen, like a returning sort of non-evergreen mechanic or anything like that.
That doesn't matter to me very much either. I just thought it was an interesting thing to say, and then turn around and we got a card that says protection from green on it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And protection was essentially banished to the Shadow Realm for many years.
Mm-hmm.
Stormbreath Dragon, the last protection creature?
There may have been. I know Theros was the last time we saw it prevalently.
Right, which, I mean, that's Dragon.
I think.
Yeah,
I can't remember.
It's in that. It's in that set, in that block, I should say. So, been a number of years, and
since it's been playable, I should say. I know it hasn't been around in a while. I can't remember if there's been like one or two here and there creatures.
No, I mean, like it has not been around since they made that announcement. There has not been in standard protection. There could have been something commander product or something else.
Yeah, obviously.
But even very recently, we saw the adoption of like hexproof from a color as a replacement for protection. Protection was, if I remember correctly, Mara was saying, is one of the most consistently confusing mechanics. And the reminder text on this, and I'll look at the card. It's a beetle. That is like, it's a lot. It's a lot of things. So it just seems odd. We're like, this is our ramping product, and we're not going to bring back other keywords. Here's protection from green, and you're like, I don't know about this one, champ.
So all that indicates to me is that there obviously was a push to have protection in another set down the road, and they need to get players ready for that.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I also think that hexproof from X isn't as effective as they wanted it to be.
No.
We don't have a, like, we saw the Knights that had hexproof from white and hexproof from black respectively. And those seemed like the closest things that could see play, and they haven't for a while now. And I just don't think that that has been an effective replacement with what they want to do. And I think like they just had to turn back to something that they don't necessarily like to do, but works, if that makes any sense.
No, I agree with you. I think if you look at Vinemare is the card that sticks out to me the most.
Vinemare
where
too. Yeah.
Whoever the designer was on that was probably pretty dissatisfied because like there's a blocking clause, there's a hexproof clause, like, and there's like, man, I really wanted this to have protection from all of these effects in standard right now. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's where that push was, because if you look at Vinemare and you look at like, oh, but we could have put protection on it, it is a super clunky thing to read. Okay, you can't be targeted, can't be blocked, but okay, honestly, we're here. So there's some things like mass removal, or like as far as like deals X damage or whatever else that has some corner cases, and I know it is probably confusing for new players. I mean, protection took, I know before they even had reminder text, man, you look at protection and just be like, oh well, that makes sense. But then there are some ways that it interacts where like that did not make intuitive sense to me. Did not realize it was just like unblockable, like that is not something you would think about. So it's just interesting to see it back. It just feels like a weird dichotomy to me. Like we're scaling back these keywords. This is a ramping product. Here's one of the most difficult conceptual ideas that Magic has ever presented.
Sure, but I think it's an evil they have to deal with. It's an evil that they feel.
Oh no, I'm not saying it's wrong. I just thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I think like I like protection. I think that it does a lot of good things within the format, especially for aggressive decks.
Yeah, I'm pro protection as well in most things.
Yeah, exactly. But if there's another creature that got released, it's like a 2-mana red 1/1 that if it has protection from white, and if when you attack with it, it gets +3. It's a Teferi killer, pretty much.
Red +2/+0, but it's the red Vanguard, the Adanta Vanguard.
Yeah, and with that card existing in the format, that gives a lot more availability. Like if that card just had like hexproof from white, it's not playable in my opinion. It doesn't do quite what you need to do in certain in certain abilities, just because you need it to be able to get through a blocker at points in time. So I get that it's definitely complicated, but at some point in time, like like Magic itself is complicated. So while protection's not one of the most like new user friendly mechanics, the whole idea of Magic just isn't necessarily user friendly at times. and I think like they're doing their best, and maybe is a argument to why you need a more basic ramp up product. And maybe not for constructed, but maybe for limited. Maybe the limited environment is going to be more inviting. And I don't know, like Arena throws like a whole wrench into things, obviously, but focusing just on paper, I think core sets have been a good way to introduce.
No, I'm glad to have core sets for so many reasons, but I never get over how some of the reasonings don't. I just feel like consistently, and this has been true recently, WotC just doesn't talk to itself like employees don't talk to each other. It's like, this is what we're saying about this. This is what we're presenting. Here's what we've said in the past. These three things do not make a straight line, or even a jagged line. It's kind of one of those, well, okay, it's an unspeakable symbol, and if you speak it, you will summon a demon. But it'll be promo, so...
There you go.
Speaking of promo, they're also increasing the foil rates.
That's correct.
Pretty significantly.
Yeah.
It was 1 out of 65, and now it's 1 out of 45.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and cool.
What do you think the reasoning is behind that?
People like foils.
That's it?
Yeah.
Okay.
People like foils. It gets exciting when you open a foil. So, like, if you're telling me that I get to do that more often, that's exciting. And, you know, I think it's a way to maybe just a little bit, just slightly push paper Magic as well.
Yeah, that's fair.
I'm not saying by a lot, but you know, you can't open a foil, you know, quote unquote, in Arena.
Right.
You know, that's something that's currently unique to paper Magic. You know, I don't know if they're going to be doing something where they have card styles that you can open in packs or what have you. But I just think like that people like to do it. Maybe there could be some thing they you know, we obviously know they're modifying the card stock and having new card stock, which is already out. So maybe they want more foils in the environment to see like what happens with the card stock in the foiling process. That's like, they would never actually say that would be the reason, and I don't know how you actually judge that other than like people complaining. So, but I just think like people like foils.
Yeah, I mean, there's diminishing returns there though. Like people like foils, so then we'll just increase it to every pack, and we've seen like in premium products like, you know, Masters or whatever, that isn't an exciting slot. It has value because of the price of the rare and the mythic slot that can be foil. But I remember like you had shards, all foil packs that were kicking around for nothing, like no cost for years. I could go to Gen Con for years and just like, hey, let's draft foil Lara, and it'd be like, oh no, it's worthless. So like there's diminishing returns there for like people like foils.
And like I don't think like, you know, that's going to be the where we're looking at for every like, you know, standard set or anything like that. But I mean, look at the fat packs too. Like where you're going to get 20 foil basic lands.
Yeah, that's interesting to me too.
I think they're going a little foil crazy.
They're certainly going foil crazy.
But as long as you're not like, you know, every box is foil Lara, then I think we'll still be all right. I don't mind the ratio change, if that makes any sense. So this seems like, you know,
I like when my packs get ratioed.
We'll have to wait and see, like, you know, whenever that comes out, we get a box and actually crack it open and see like if it's significant. But you know what? If you're someone who has a cube or a battle box or anything like that, you will probably be okay with there being more foils on the market. Cheaper,
but, can I put tinfoil hat on for a second and then let me ask you, because I've only followed this vaguely, but the push to look into legislating microtransactions, specifically loot boxes with absurd rarities in them, does that ever push to affect card games? I don't know because there's an argument that like there is, you know, like predatory practices in these. So does like increasing, like getting ahead of that by increasing the odds of foil, does that decrease how predatory you might look in the eyes of people crafting legislation?
I don't think so.
Okay.
Like, I don't think that would make you any more immune to it because you still have varying. Like, you're still a booster pack's a loot box. Like, period.
It is.
Like,
It 100% is.
You have
It's the OG loot box.
correct. You have like odds of getting either a like they literally have this thing, like. Everything in a loot box is replicated in a Magic booster pack. You have commons, you have uncommons, you have rares, and then sometimes you have mythic rares, which is the same thing that happens when you open your Overwatch loot box and you get a legendary skin. You're like, sweet, I got that mythic rare. It's the same thing.
It's even similar in color.
Yes, 100%. So I'm not sure how the hammer is going to fall with any of this legislation that people are trying to stir up or have been successful in other countries in regards to how it looks at paper products versus digital products.
Fair enough.
I think like that's where your separation is going to be. Do I think there should be a separation? No, but then again, I also don't know how you continue having Magic.
Yeah, I don't know either. Without a booster pack, like I don't want booster packs to go away, but I also do think that loot boxes digitally, maybe just because my brain looks at digital things differently than how it looks at paper things.
Right.
I know that I can go and trade my Magic cards. I can't
Right.
do anything with my loot box trash.
And maybe that's the argument that they can make, that regardless of the regardless of what you're opening, you always have I don't know, even like thinking about it and just trying to say it out loud just doesn't seem like.
But I think it's interesting that if you look at Arena, which is skewed foils entirely, and then they made it very like you can do special things to get like skins, but there's a clear cost for each skin. And you're never opening in the booster pack. And I think that's interesting. That does seem like maybe they got ahead of it that way.
I don't know. I wonder. I do wonder where the line is in sort of that reasoning. I
have no idea.
I wish I knew, legally speaking, as to why loot boxes have literally existed forever in paper terms, but suddenly they're of a predatory nature when they go digital.
I'm allowed to go on eBay and buy grab bags.
Yeah, I don't. Like, I wonder. That's a good question. There is a session at Gen Con that is it's a sort of a presentation that's done by someone who knows like copyright, and that would be a good question for them, I imagine.
Yeah, all right, fair enough.
So maybe that's something that we've done before and sat through. And
I enjoyed the last one we went to on that. That was good.
Mm-hmm. And you get a booster pack when you go.
Yeah,
you get a loot box.
You go to see loot boxes. I hope I get my Ajani skin. Oh god!
But,
with 3 different Chandras in the packs, you can actually get different rarity Chandra skins.
You 100% can.
Oh no!
So I don't really know where that all falls down, but it's interesting to think about for sure.
Yeah, I think so. Let's pick a couple of cards to talk about. We've gotten a lot in this week, but we'll have this whole set pretty quickly. So I don't want to spend too much time dwelling on specific cards. So just pick out a few that interest you, excite you. What do you think?
Ley lines are back.
Hey, let's Ley Line of the Void is the big one, but Ley Line of Sanctity too.
Yeah, Sanctity got a little bit weaker with the targeting change because now you can just target Planeswalkers anyway.
Right.
But we have Sanctity, Anticipation, Void as returning ones, and then we have Ley Line of Combustion as a new red one, and then Ley Line of Abundance.
I'm glad you knew it because I saw Linea Mystica de la Abundancia, and I was like,
Ley Line of Abundance, which is the new green one. So.
Yes.
Let's talk about the new ones just a little bit. So Ley Line of Combustion, 2 generic red for an enchantment. It has the Ley Line clause, which is if you have this in your opening hand, you can begin the game with it in play, not just in your hand still.
If you don't, you exile it from your library. Get out of here.
It says whenever you and/or at least one permanent you control becomes the target of a spell or an ability an opponent controls, Ley Line of Combustion deals 2 damage to that player. That's
an interesting one.
Yes. So.
I'm not sure like where I want it, but it's interesting.
It kind of does everything that you want it to do. There's no like real way around it. They have it's going to do something. Like it's going to deal at least 2 damage to them if they're targeting it to remove it. If you get Thought Erasured in Standard, it's going to deal 2 damage to your opponent. If your opponent targets any one of your creatures to kill it, they're going to get hit for 2 damage.
Fairy, do damage.
Yeah, it's I'm with you. I'm not quite sure like where I would want this. I don't know if it has modern implications. The red ley lines typically don't, unless they're like Ley Line of Punishment, which is the only one that I think I've ever seen. Is that the only red ley line? Is there another one? I forget what the other one is. I know it's Punishment and maybe something else.
There's one that deals like damage to tokens, non-tokens, and there's one that prevents all damage. There's two red ones.
Yeah.
I'll have to look. I don't know. Does this work against Storm the way I think it does? Like, does each grape shot
targets you? Yeah.
So
yes,
that's hilarious.
That's 100%.
Here we have Ley Line of Punishment, which is players can get life, damage can be prevented, and Ley Line of Lightning, which is whenever you play a spell, you may pay 1. If you do, Ley Line of Lightning does 1 damage to start player.
Gotcha.
That one's real bad.
That will, because it says pay 1.
Yeah, it's real bad.
But yeah, I think like among the red ley lines, I like this, and maybe it's a standard player. Maybe it's a way you interact with like control decks or interactive Sultai decks or something like that.
Thinking about like, I mean, granted it's a little bit different now, but the way like Esper Control still wins is I was going to say Teferi exiling, but the first thing with exile is the ley line. So what does it matter? I don't know then, but
it is a port they stack too.
That is true, I guess. I have beginning game effects. 4 of these.
4 of these try to win. I only have 3 cards. I'll give you that.
I will say it's pretty unbeatable in the burn mirror.
Yeah.
You need to target me to kill me.
And
interestingly enough, I have burn spells to target you with. And this ley line. Now, granted, that also seems like you're boarding a bunch of ley lines against burn. So I don't know. I don't know. But
all your sideboard is literally 12 ley lines. Ley line of Sanctity, no, Ley Line of the Void, this ley line, and I guess you only need 8 ley lines.
All right. Ley line. No. Okay, sorry.
And then we have Ley Line of Abundance, which is 2 generic green. Has the ley line clause. And it says, whenever you tap a creature for mana, it adds an additional green to your mana pool. It has an activated ability of 6 green. Put a +1/+1 counter on all creatures you control. So it's the elf, the mana elf ley line.
Yeah, it's like Elf Ball, the ley line. I don't know. I mean, we have multiple decks in Standard that are playing 12 mana creatures right now, so it's fairly interesting.
Yeah, I don't know. This one seems kind of mopey.
Yeah, okay, that's fair.
I don't know. Like, I feel like the green ley line has the same problem as the red, force, right?
Right.
Where it's just like they either make a version that looks like this and it's kind of mopey, or a version that's too good. So, this is whatever. It's fine. But yeah, Ley Line of the Void being reprinted is like huge. We've already seen it in a previous core set. And it's obviously very important in Modern right now.
Yeah,
so
and, it's one of those cards that I'm glad to see in the rare slot, as opposed to like sometimes they've stuck things in the mythic slot too, because they're expensive. But making this a cycle at rare, having at least 2 of them, and I think I haven't checked the Ley Line of Anticipation, but that card used to be somewhat pricey because of a commander and things like that. So
yeah, Ley Line of Anticipation is hilarious just because of Teferi being in the
Teferi
format.
just negates that card.
It's like, cool. You can still only play things at sorcery speed.
There's a couple of cards in here that are interesting. I want to talk about Scheming Symmetry for a minute, because I think this is a really interesting card and a very, very powerful card, and I'm surprised to see it. We just had Modern Horizons. And this looks on power level with Modern Horizons to me. This is a black for a sorcery. Choose 2 target players. Each of them searches their library for a card, then shuffles their library and puts that card on top of it. So this is Vamp Tutor for you and me. I won't lose 2 life. It's a sorcery, so you can't do it end of turn. Well, actually, it can, though, with that Teferi.
With the Teferi, aforementioned.
But there's plenty of ways to build your deck so that you can just, cast a spell and then, Field of Ruin your opponent. You know what I mean? There's a lot of ways to make this work in your favor. And, if you can consistently make this work in your favor, then, congratulations, you have 1 mana Demonic Tutor. That seems really gross to me. Yeah, I can't say Demonic Tutor. It doesn't go to your hand, so I'll stick with Vampire Tutor.
Yeah.
And I think that's pretty powerful. In Standard, Tutor effects are fine. You're normally just finding your best card. But, when you take this to Modern, I don't know, there's definitely, builds of, Storm, where you could just like, oh, I need to get for this turn. I'm going to draw a card anyways. Like, here we go, and it doesn't matter that there's a card that you want on top of your library. So, I think this card is like, it could be the kind of card that just like quietly goes through standard, doesn't do anything. But if anybody's playing this card, they're probably not doing anything fair with it. So,
oh, definitely not. Which is like a weird thing to do at being Wizards of the Coast. Be like, let's put more things that let's put a tutor into the modern format and. It's not that hard to like.
No, it just isn't.
Play around the downside.
Like I was playing 4 of these and 4 like Street Wraiths, and then be like, well, I'll construct the rest of my deck around me having this tutor.
Yeah,
and with Street Wraith, it is Vamp Tutor, so there we go.
Or Demonic Tutor.
No, you lose 2 life.
Oh, you
so
lose
it
2
actually
life.
becomes Vamp Tutor. And then I guess Vampiric Demonic Tutor.
Yeah,
Vampirically Demonic guy.
Yeah.
I also want to make mention that this is a card that I'm assuming is going to be really popular in multiplayer formats. Commander. I know I like it for Type 4.
It's great in Two-Headed Giant, by the way.
Oh yeah, Two-Headed Giant. You and your teammate just like are the full on like muscle arm meme, just like. Ugh. But I just like this like in a big game of Commander where you can just like look at your like, hey, I need to go get this card. What card would you like?
If I cast this against you, can't get anything that's good against me.
Or like you could look at turn order and just be like, okay, when if that person untaps, we lose. So you two, you need to go find an answer. Here you go. Like I think that's a cool card. So I think Gavin Verhey is the one who said he's been trying to get this through a design for a couple of years. So yeah, it smells like Gavin Verhey. Like it's like I'm like okay, you monster. So, but it's a cool card. I like it. Anything else you want to talk about right now?
I mean, to be honest, there are a lot more like cool cards than I thought they were going to be.
Yeah, I agree. Now we've gotten a lot of them up front, so we'll see how that continues. But yeah.
There's definitely been some really interesting things that are going to be coming into the format, and like I don't know if they're playable. I don't know if they're good. To be honest, but. They are interesting, and like some even like small role players, like some reprints that we're getting Disfigure again.
Disfigure's a good get.
And we are getting like a new like instant speed 2 damage spell that is probably one of the best versions that we've seen of this, which is that has been uncommon, I should say, which is it deals 2 damage to each creature except creatures you control with flying, which is good, obviously, and that's 2 generic red for it's called Flame Sweep.
Actually, can we talk about Goblin Ringleader for a second?
Yeah, that's another one I was going to bring up. Like people were saying that this was missing from Modern Horizons.
Like it sure was. I guess we can have Ringleader in Standard, but never Matron.
Yeah,
that's all right. Someday, Goblin Mom.
Again, they don't print tutors in... Oh, wait.
Okay, you didn't have to hurt me like that. But you did. Okay, fine. Goblin Matron, you can go search your library for a Goblin, too. That's fine. That's fair. So yeah,
Goblin Step Matron.
Ringleader, 3 generic and red for a 2/2 creature Goblin with haste. When it enters the battlefield, reveal the top 4 cards of your library. Put all Goblin cards revealed this way into your hand and the rest in the bottom of your library. So if you are building your deck to have a swarm of Goblins, then this is a pretty consistent hit of at least 1, but sometimes you just hit a bunch more.
Yeah, sometimes you draw 4.
Like now everyone's gonna say, well, now we just need to unban Goblin Recruiter, and then we'll go from there.
I don't think that's gonna happen.
And put it in standard set. But no, I think there's a lot of cool things you could do. You could play the tutor card and put a Goblin on top of your deck, and then cast this and make sure you got.
Yeah, there you go, easy. That's probably what it's there for.
Builds your own matron. But I think this card is really great, and it's important that for at least there's a lot of cards that are overlapping for just a little bit of time that are exciting. This overlapping with Goblin Chieftain for a couple of months is cool.
And the
Cirque Prospector.
Yeah, and Siege Gang.
But CJ, yeah, all 3 of those. Like the whole gang is kind of coming back together. And there's 2 cards in this set that interact really favorably with Scapeshift, for example.
Yeah, the black rare, right?
The black rare does which is called Dread Presence, which has a trigger whenever a swamp enters the battlefield under your control. You can make an opponent lose 2 life. So, if you can escape shift that one, but the land is probably more likely. The what's it called?
Field of the Dead.
Yeah. When it enters the battlefield tapped, adds for a colorless. Whenever Field of the Dead or another land enters the battlefield under your control, if you control 7 or more lands with different names, create a 2/2 black zombie creature token. I mean, you can Scapeshift for 7 different named lands, including this one, get 7 tokens. That's pretty crazy. I think this card is just playable in a lot of different decks right now, just because you can play a lot of different named lands and it not be an issue. This feels like a desert to me. Doesn't it feel like a desert?
Yes.
Why isn't it a desert?
I don't know.
This
Maybe
is a weird thing to not have the subtype on.
maybe because like there's no reason to like do that. Like it's not going to be relevant. So like why?
I mean, it's relevant because other cards say desert. I don't know. That seems odd to me when you design a card that looks like a desert, looks like one of your Amonkhet style deserts.
Yeah.
Like the art kind of looks like Sunscorched Desert. I don't know. I guess there's a river in the crack. Maybe that's the problem. But
I guess when you talk about differently named lands, we are getting a set of rare duels. Not a full set, a half set if you want, but we're getting the enemy colored temples. So the Temple of Silence, Epiphany, Malady, Triumph, and Mystery.
Oh, Temple of Triumph, my old friend.
Welcome home.
It's good to have you back. We got a lot to go over.
So with this, there are a healthy number of land slots in Corsa 2020. Typically, that was dedicated to an uncommon cycle of duels, so the tap land duels. Now we're getting this rare cycle. So do you think we're just going to get another allied set potentially? So maybe uncommon tap lands to complement these.
I don't know. I'm assuming we'll get like an Evolving Wilds, and maybe an Evolving Wilds and like a Painted Bluffs, or nope, that's a desert. But some variant of that.
So, yes, but there's still a significant amount of land slots based on the name and number crunch.
Oh, fair enough.
So, I think I could look it up here real quick, but I was doing the math because I was trying to see. Listen, I was trying to see if they could do the Mirrodin fast lands because, like,
I don't think they would cross cycles like that.
But it needs it so bad.
Yeah, they're not going to.
It needs it so bad.
Yeah, we all do. I don't know what to tell you. I'll never own Blackleaf Cliffs. I get it. So,
but I only say that and only consider that because I don't foresee a time this year where those are getting printed again. If that makes any sense, I guess we don't really know. But like, even if we went, let's say we went back to New Phyrexia, do those things still exist in the way they are, if that makes any sense? Like,
they still exist. Yeah, the Blackleaf Cliffs still exist. The Seacrum Coast still exists. Like, those are like the major landmarks didn't disappear. There's no like Wrathy overlay from New Phyrexia.
Sure, but I just like I wonder if like Phyrexia would like transform and malform those things so
they could
so
depict
much.
that on art. They get away with it. We had a bunch of the lands that were still referencing places that were literally sucked of life essence on Zendikar. You know what I mean? Like,
sure.
So, last card I want to talk about was one of the Planeswalkers because it was kind of exciting that we got Mu Yanling, the Sky Dancer. So we got the green one in War of the Spark. She was referenced in the book. Like, she got a line talking about Mawu, right? And then now she gets a card. I think this card is pretty good, though I think it's going to have problems with the format a little bit.
Yeah. We have at least 11 land slots left.
Okay.
So
you wipe the sweat for a second.
So this would, like, the name and number crunch have to change because right now we only have one slot before Cryptic Caves, and we would need 2 for Blackleaf Cliffs, and then
I promise you that's
Dark
not it.
Slick Shores.
It's not it.
No, wait, maybe not. There's another. I thought there was another one. Listen, all right. Let me wish. Let me hope. Let me hope until it's dead.
If that is also in there, if the allied fastlands are in this set, in addition to the temples that we already have, I will eat another hat. So that's where we'll go.
I'm just saying right now it's unbalanced, so that's my only concern.
Okay. But anyways, Mu Yanling, 1 UU for Legendary Planeswalker, +2 until your next turn. Up to 1 target creature gets -2, -0, and loses flying. -3, create a 4/4 blue elemental bird creature token with flying. -8, you get an emblem with islands you control, have tap, draw a card. That's pretty insane.
Yeah.
I think at 3 mana, this is a really powerful Planeswalker. You can't immediately make a bird.
No,
but
but
the
you can.
tick up is powerful.
Yeah, you can shrink something and make it not lose its evasion. If it's flying, and even if it has something like that has trample or, you can really sort of protect it even with that. You do have to have something theoretically to block it. But what was the? It was the other Jace.
Yeah, no, I was going to say
flip Jace.
Friend's Prodigy showed how powerful that tick up can be.
Yeah.
That or the Liliana from I can't remember now.
Eldritch Moon.
Thank you. Those abilities that stick around to your next turn, they really can wreak a lot of havoc. And this going tick up, tick down, make a bird, tick up again is pretty good. I think the problem with this card it's going to face is that its pattern of tick up, make a bird is real bad against like Teferi. Just like
So
it's really
bad
bad
against
in the
Teferi.
format. But when you're looking for another Planeswalker to in your Planeswalker suite, like it takes a while, but that ultimate is real good.
Yeah, it reminds me of Koth.
I know
A little bit.
I know it does.
So did you listen to the Vorthos cast with Ethan and Fleischer?
I have not yet.
Okay, you should listen to it.
It's sitting there waiting for me.
You should listen to it. It's worth your time.
I've been re-listening to the Adventure Zone Amnesty.
Gotcha.
So
yeah,
I'm almost done. But no, I know it's sitting there. I'm excited for it.
Shout out to the Vorthos cast.
At this point, every single week.
Yeah.
Just, they're our favorites.
I agree. They're at least Brian. Brian is a fan of ours, and we're a fan of theirs. So
Yeah, we're a fan of just Brian.
no, all of them. But I can't
But
speak.
mostly Brian.
I can't speak to how much of a fan the other members of that podcast are.
Hey, Brian was
a fan
looking
of
out
ours.
for me on Hogak. Like
He was.
and he was like trying to figure out like there's a mod that somebody uses to like change MTGO art. So yeah, that's I've been in the modern leagues and I've been like peeking through my hands like, do you have Hogak?
Okay.
But I just think like the other walkers are that are interesting, like all of them, and we will talk about them. The new Sorin is interesting. The Ajani is definitely unique. They've definitely they didn't just go with generic. I'm wondering. We haven't seen Vivian yet. I'm wondering if that's just going to be a Vivian Reed reprint.
I think it's fine.
I would not be upset with it. Like I would. We've already gotten 2 of her, and Vivian Reed is sort of like I said it when the card came out. Like I thought it was a fairly it's the generic 5 mana whatever, but it is a solid green planeswalker that does a lot of green things. So I think Champion of the Wilds is a sweet design, but of course that can't they wouldn't
it's a
reprint
rare.
that. But I think like they could just reprint Vivian Reed and be okay with it. I think it'll be awkward if like you have another new Vivian and then you'll have another planeswalker Vivian. Like I get it, we have a million Chandras too, but like boy is that a lot. That's a lot.
That's a lot.
So.
I do think like the Sorin is interesting because that's the first time we've had a like 2 generic black mythic rare, like 2 generic X color mythic rare planeswalker. It feels like I don't know if that's exactly true, but I don't think like we've seen one at 3 mana.
No, not like this. If we're gonna talk about it, let's read it. So Sorin Imperious Bloodlord, 2 generic and a black for legendary planeswalker. Sorin has 4 loyalty, +1 target creature you control gains death touch and lifelink until end of turn. If it's a vampire, also put a counter on it. +1/+1 counter. +1 you may sacrifice a vampire. When you do, Sorin Imperious Bloodlord deals 3 damage to any target and you gain 3 life. -3 you may put a vampire creature card from your hand onto the battlefield. So I like this because at 4 loyalty it can do any of the things when it comes into play. So you can use it to just like power out a scary vampire.
And there are lots of scary like there are a few vampires that are worth powering out.
The Buy a Box promo is a vampire, is it not?
It is true.
Okay, so I thought about that. I was like, okay, that's kind of hilarious, but But yeah, like this being again fairly splashable, easy to play in other things, encourages you to play black-white vampires, which is something that saw a little bit of play after Ixalan. And it was pointed out that I think maybe you posted this in our Discord, but this with a flipped Adanta the First.
Yeah, it was. I think someone on Twitter that was pointing it out, but yeah, this plus Adanta is like 4 mana lightning helix every turn.
So. That's pretty good. So yeah, no, I think the Sorin is really powerful. 3 mana coming in with 4 loyalty and only ticking up, like or probably ticking up is pretty good. But even when you get to tick down and do something powerful, it's still there. So I like this card a lot. And I mean, maybe it's a plan for future vampires, but this seems to be like one of those cards that's like here to bridge the gap, just like Liliana from the last core set was. So cool card. Well, do you want to move on from the core set? We'll have a Palooza here in the next few weeks, which just sounds crazy. I feel like I've been paloozing too much. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting old.
Yeah, is this a good way to segue into our next topic, which is
that's what I was doing.
Oh,
I'm a GD professional.
So we obviously just had Modern Horizons that just did come out in paper, and this is the time that we get every year where we have a new thing in a supplemental set come out, as well as this set come out again. Like a new set come out pretty swiftly thereafter in core set 20, and we have a question of release fatigue and if it's just like too much. And I think like I think the reason that we might be feeling it at this point in time is because typically we can just ignore the exploratory set, right? We can ignore the conspiracy. We can ignore the battle bond. We don't have to think about getting cards to finish a deck of a particular constructed format. We don't play Legacy. We don't play Vintage. We don't play DH. Where you would be looking at these sets to gain new cards for what you have. But with Modern Horizons, we have to pay attention to it more because we have to think and like really concentrate on having to get stuff for those decks. And also now with a set that is going to be coming out with 2020, we also have to consider that and get new cards for whatever we want to play in Standard. So I think like that's why, because we have to put more consideration into Modern Horizons.
Maybe that's true. When I put it down here, it wasn't just us feeling the fatigue.
Yeah, no, obviously.
It's been a pretty big topic on, the Twitterverse and, all those sorts of things. And I think it's at least something interesting to talk about. I think when you talk about Horizons, as we talked about in the startup of the show, being essentially what feels like a Magic Online almost exclusive set for a little while and it not crossing to Arena, there's probably a large portion of the player base that won't feel fatigue from this because they're exactly what you just said. Like they can ignore Modern Horizons because they play Standard or they play Arena. So maybe that's true. But I have to say, like, my main point of contention with the fatigue is that, man, I really don't care about the people getting cards for the last two sets for like War of the Spark, like the way they did the story, and like Horizons, where individuals, a lot of creators, not every creator.
We haven't asked the right people to get that.
We also criticize a lot, so probably never will. But like I am right now. But I think like I really was invested in like seeing who had these different things, and now like it's been pointed out on Twitter. There's a lot of people even like showing off their cards are just like, hey, here's a card that was given to me, and like I think some of the ones that like I point to are like Andrew Cuneo, who was like, hey, here's Pulse and Marasa. And it was like, thanks, I'm done. And I know, like, someone who's gotten some criticism recently, and we're not going to, I think, talk about that too much, but Savich just being like, hey, here's a card. Thanks. And it's just like, okay, like, you have, like, an MPL member who's just like, oh, look, I got a card. Ad. It was like, hashtag ad. See ya. And it's like, cool. But, like, I can't say I blame them because, like, their audience is probably doesn't seem to be as reactive to it as well. So I like the way they're doing a lot of these, like, the spoiler rollouts. These are a better change than what they've had in the past, but it does seem like we've been on this consistent parade since April now, and it feels like a lot. It feels like a lot.
Yeah. I was taking a look at like release timelines and release dates. So Battle Bond released on June 8th of 2018. Core Set 2019 released on July 13th of 2018. So similar timeframes within days of each other, a little bit over a month. The Modern Horizons to Core Set 2020, Modern Horizon released June 14th, which just happened. Core Set releases July 12th. So it's a little bit under a month.
Sure. And like, again, I think when we're talking about just like, if you are a person who follows content on Twitter, it probably has not felt like there has not been, like, there hasn't been a day in a while where it's not like, hey, look, new cards.
Yeah. And then, like, that's,
which is exciting to an extent, but like, when you're talking about a game that has a real cost, like when you're talking about you got to be excited and get a chance to experience the first thing before you can be excited about the next thing. It just I'm interested to see, like, they'll never release those kind of things, but like I wonder if Horizon suffers a little bit from this. I wonder if like the core set suffers a little bit from this. We saw over the weekend, whenever we've had supplemental releases, they fire a lot of drafts. We had zero fire at the PTQ, the WMCQ, on Saturday,
and there were other contributing factors to
certainly there
that.
were, but that also like the biggest factor for that is that you didn't have multiple people clamoring to do it. So, and that's a very small sample size. It's not like I can extrapolate from that, but this is just me pondering.
Sure. I normally don't care about these supplemental stunts, but again, I play Modern, so I care about it a lot more. And I think like it's rough to follow something as exciting as Modern Horizons with something as
bland as the core
as
set,
mediocre,
as
like theoretically mediocre. I think honestly, I've been very excited about the core set 2020 stuff.
They've been very unique cards.
I think like sometimes that creates like, okay, I'm done with this because these are starting to get. I'm overseeing these cards. They're bland, But again, I think like you just have to put more consideration into Modern Horizons than you would have, the previously exploratory set, and you have a lot more people being excited about things coming out. Like I've saw more about Modern Horizons because I follow people that play Modern. That's the player base that I typically follow. So they're all talking about the cards that are getting released. So I'm constantly getting information about what they're, I'm constantly getting a feedback loop of seeing a new card, people reacting to it, then moving on and going forward. Normally, I don't have that much of a feedback, loop within like a Battle Bond or Conspiracy, because like those players, the competitive players that are mainly focused on Modern, mainly focused on Standard, don't necessarily care about Battle Bond. They might talk about it, be like, oh, this set looks cool, this card looks cool, blah 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 blah, but there was a lot of mental consideration that had to go into a lot of the Modern Horizons cards to analyze, because it was going to be important for a format I know that I was going to play, that they were going to play. So I think like that's why it feels exhausting, because a lot of the people within my sort of bubble, for lack of a better term, care about all the cards that have been coming up for the past month and a half. And like that's exhausting to care about everything that's happening. You don't get a mental break that we're used to between sets.
I also think like on a daily basis though, that changes to when they are releasing cards like this, because before it'd be like you got your daily card dump mostly one at a time, and now it's like sporadic. Like I can't look at my Twitter feed right now without seeing, like, if I open it right now, let's see here. Let's see how many, just opening up Twitter, see how many random new cards I will see if I just start scrolling through here. Oh my gosh, I've actually gotten further than I've ever gotten before. No, now they're all gone.
Yeah, we're...
Made a bet. There we go. Marauding Raptor.
We're probably closing in on them being, like, done for the...
for the day.
For the evening.
Most people are still tweeting about them, that's why. Fry, which, man, that's some really good flavor art, or some flavor text and art together.
It's a good card.
Another copy of Fry. Moldervine Reclamation. So, I don't know. It just feels different. I'm not upset about it. Like, I want to, like, that's not a point of criticism for me here. I just think it was something to consider. I do want to say before we move on here, because we're going to talk about the Mythic Championship a little bit. I know there's a lot of Modern decks the last 2 weeks that we've gotten. Morgan specifically, myself included, Morgan specifically may have said some things about Hogak that were just wrong. I just said he looks awful, and I am afraid of his visage, but he may have broken Modern, so there's that. But I think like a lot more cards in the last 2 weeks. That's what I've seen a lot of people saying is, wow, a lot more Modern Horizons cards are currently seeing play. I'm interested to see how long some of the cards see play, because I think some of the cards seeing play are, I'm like, okay, you're trying this. Let's see if it's actually good enough. But the cards that have been good have been very good. So the only, I think, truly, we've gotten Urza archetypes, which we knew were coming, and we've gotten the Hogak. So we haven't seen too much else there. But Modern certainly is reacting to these cards, which I think is reacting more strongly than I thought it would, and I think a lot of people thought it would. I've seen that take on Twitter a lot, like, I'm surprised at these things. I will be interested to see what happens when we have the instatement of the Mulligan rule. We have some harder numbers on things like Hogak to see if there is a ban coming, and then the Modern Pro Tour when we get to the end of July. So I'm going to take all the deck lists with a grain of salt as we sift through this, because like just like after any major set release, like in Standard, a lot of weird decks will see this. We also, the thing I was alluding to in the opening. So I've been playing I've played a couple leagues today of Magic Online with the Mono Red Phoenix deck. Lava Dart is real. If there's any card that's real in Modern Horizons 1, it's Lava Dart.
Hogak first, but then Lava Dart, yes.
Nope, Lava Dart first. Because Hogak does not exist to me. It's full John Cena. Can't see it. It was funny because we were talking about like art, and like Dave was like, well, I want the OG Judgment ones. I was like, I think I have to play the new ones because they say Koth on them.
They just say Koth.
So I have to represent Koth.
So we got a meme. We got
a meme to represent. But in playing those leagues with all the recent updates to Magic Online, and because of number dipping and other things, it wasn't Modern so much, but other formats, they just combined all the leagues, the friendly and competitive. That means that you will see some not decks pretty consistently. I 4-1 both of my leagues today, losing in the mirror, but like in one of the leagues I played against, like a really, really bad variant of like, and I don't think there's a really good version of it, but a bad variant of the mill deck that milled me into multiple copies of Arclight Phoenix and multiple copies of Lava Dart. And I was like, well, I'm going to cast these darts to bring these Phoenixes back. Do you have the Surgical? No. What are you doing in this format? Are you going to play this against Hogak? What are you doing?
Hogak's the better mill deck.
You're not wrong. So, and it's like one of those things where I don't know how consistently you're seeing like subpar versions of like tier 4 decks. You know, I'm sorry. If you're a big mill player, I'm very sorry. I'm not trying to insult you. Like, there is a tuned version of that deck that I know exists. That's not what I played against. And they're probably staying in the friendly leagues. So, any of these 5-0 decks too, like even some of the Goblins decks I've seen that have excited me, I'm trying to be like, okay, hold on. Before I rush out and buy all these caverns, let's wait and see. So, I think you got to give time for the format to settle, time for Modern on Magic Online to also coalesce a little bit.
And to be fair, like we'll never have accurate numbers anymore about what the metagame truly looks like.
If one of them 5-0s, it can be listed. If 10 of them 5-0s, one will be listed. So,
correct.
Yeah, you're not wrong with that. So I think I'm get the cards you want to get because if Horizons for some reason does not see as much, like it'll be printed to order, but I don't know how much you'll see with it. I've already gotten 3 of my lands I needed, and I don't really need too much else from this set. So do a box sitting at home waiting for us to draft.
I have a box that'll be coming in the mail tomorrow.
Nice. So, I will say this draft format sweet. Wizards very rarely fails to create a fun draft format, and this is no exception. So,
that's good to hear.
It shouldn't cost you $20-some to experience this draft format still, and that is another complaint on Twitter that I've wholeheartedly backed. It's like the set is only expensive because you decided to make it expensive. That's literally it. So you can say like, oh, we gave you the art cards and some foil tokens, but like, nah.
Yeah.
Nah. So I did order a bunch of foil tokens from Legit though, for like 30 cents a piece. I was like, oh, there's foil golems. I need all of these for battle blocks.
Yeah.
So
hey, and you'll be able to play them in Core Set 2020 because
that is also
we
true.
do have a few cards that make 3/3 golems, which we haven't seen in a while.
Yeah.
So the going theory is we also have a few Theros cards.
A couple of Theros plants, yes.
So going theory so far is new plane in the fall, going back to Theros in the winter to pick up Elspeth, and then we go back and get our revenge on New Phyrexia, where Koth can rise.
Yeah, I hope we get like a full on we'll get that full on Koth moment where Koth just like it's like Ronan from Avengers who just pulls the. Don't give me hope.
Oh man, and we already have a plethora of we're gonna have that new Chandra who and Chandra that makes the Red Planeswalkers real good. Come on, just give us Koth this year. Come on, please, in the spring.
Because I can play Chandra, Koth, and Sarkhan in the same deck, and I'll just call it We Ride. That'll be the name of the deck.
We ride.
We ride.
All right. So before we head into competitive, I do want to give a quick shout out to our lovely sponsor, Comic Town. They'll be holding a standard. They were holding a modern IQ.
Can you read, sir?
A modern IQ. I saw Saturday. So
on Standard Day,
they're holding a modern IQ on Saturday, June 22nd. It'll be $35. What Saturday?
I'm sorry.
June 22nd.
I just thought of Wednesday is Odin's Day, Thursday is Thor's Day, and Saturday is Standards Day. Fitting the gods' conventions.
It'll be $35 to enter, and it'll be there'll be registration opens at 11, and there will be a players meeting at 12. So be there and go play probably against a bunch of Hogak decks.
Go play against the Hogak decks.
Let's be real.
I'm going to call a judge against every one of my opponents who plays Hogak and say that they are insulting me and harming me.
They need to get proxies for their Hogaks. Please, can you put some planes? And I don't know.
I will tell the judge that I have tryptophobia, and they will say, "What?" And I'll be like, please don't. I have a problem with these. I'll just draw big smiley faces and slide them into the sleeve, just can you play with these?
Can you put something over that? It's disturbing. Can you blur it out?
This is obscene.
Can you blur out his face like he's he's someone who hasn't signed a waiver on a dating show?
As the Supreme Court once said, I don't know what obscenity is, but I know it when I see it. And this is it. I found it. Censor this.
Hogak is obscenity. All right, so competitive. So over the weekend, Comic Town did have a MCQ. MCQ.
WMCQ. I don't know what that
there's
means.
No world.
I don't know what that means.
I don't know either, but yeah, it was
WWMCQE.
www.mcq. That Mike and I and Dave as well also participated in, and we had varying levels of success. My level of success was not. I started off the day rough, battled back a little bit, then took my third loss, and then went on my my merry way. And Dave had similar endings as that I did, except that he got to play out in the tournament and ended up he cashed, right.
He top 16.
He top
I think
16,
he
yeah.
finished X2.
Yeah.
Or X2 or X3.
I think X3.
Okay, I think he definitely top 16. So
Yeah. So he stuck into the top 16, and then Mike had the best day out of all of us. And I think it was probably playing the best deck for the room for the most time. But I'll start off with what I played. I played Esper Hero, and I felt like it was very disadvantaged for the room. I played against a lot of either Sultai or Bant, like it just felt like I was playing the wrong build. If I had been playing more of the Esper, what is considered Esper control, I think I would have fared a little bit better. But leading up to the tournament, like I just wasn't satisfied with playing anything that I could actually play. While doing like cursory testing on Arena, like I felt like I was losing to a lot of different things. Felt like the world was against me and trying to determine a deck, and just really couldn't kind of decide on what I wanted to play. So I decided to play Hero, but I think I would have fared better at least playing Esper Control. The swapping out the heroes for more main deck kill cards and actually playing sweepers. So I have to go back. That's probably what I would have played. That I had access to. Had I had access to anything, I would have played something like Sultai or Bant. I think that was a tough room for Esper. I know that it did. At least one Esper did top 8, and got to the finals, if I'm not mistaken. I think that's who was the other finalist.
Then he won.
Yeah, technically, yeah. Yes, he won.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was my tournament. Like I said, I started the day off 0-2 and then routed off 2 more wins. And then I dropped the 5th round after my third loss, I think. Maybe. I can't remember. But I just didn't feel confident in the deck compared to the deck in the room. I really I played really poorly against. I played Is It Phoenix for round 5. I think that's what happened. That made me go 2-3, and that was a pretty frustrating matchup for what I had been what I was playing. I just didn't feel like I had enough access to effective things against them. If that makes any sense. I didn't play very well that match either, but it felt like a real bad uphill battle against a lot of the things that were going on. So.
Oh, fair enough. I know Dave played Phoenix as well, and Blue Red Phoenix was super representative of the room. At one point in the tournament, I played against it 3 straight rounds. So,
which I was kind of surprised by. I mean, it's a deck that I know that you have been on record saying that definitely has holes.
Yeah, I think so.
That are exploitable, and I think like it definitely it definitely feels like. If you are letting it do whatever it needs to do, then they can. They just really have the ability to bowl over most any deck, and I just was surprised to see how popular it had been for that particular weekend, because I really thought that its power was kind of waning.
I agreed. Granted, Mono Red also wasn't doing very good, which is something that you want to avoid sometimes with that deck. But
yeah,
I think I played the Bant Ramp deck, and the form was definitely skewing towards more Planeswalkers, which depending on the Planeswalker builds, I don't disagree. Like Phoenix can be very good against Planeswalkers. The problem is though that like Nissa is one of the ones that's not super good against. And like Nissa overloads pretty quickly there, and most of the Esper decks are playing 3 to 4 copies of Narset in the main, which is a really tough card for those decks to overcome.
That's how, if you're playing Esper, like that's how you're locking out your opponent.
You just play and don't tick down.
Yep, you play your Narset, you leave it at 5, and then you have it to Teferi, and then they're just pretty much locked out of the game.
Yeah, it is. Especially like I definitely like just playing a little Teferi. Like the first opponent I played that was on Drake's, like I by the end of it was a game 2 or 3. I don't know if it went 3 games or not, but essentially he still had cut a number of the finales, but he ended the game with 2 finales in hand, and me with a Teferi at a huge number. It's just like,
yeah,
you can't cast that spell,
right?
So it's tough. Like it definitely has very powerful draws, and you're getting, and a lot of people are just, again, Dave plays that deck because that's what he has the most reps with, and he just kind of likes that. I like blue red and cantrips as well, but I don't know. It just doesn't feel quite there to me. Like certain draws are very, very powerful, but there's a lot of cards in the format that just tell you that, like, hey, you're done doing these things.
Yeah.
And now if you look at, Standard's been such a fast format. You talked about, I don't mean like speed of the games. I mean like how quickly it shifted. You talked about struggling to find a deck. I did the same thing for the Invitational, played mono red and got heavily punished for it. So I literally like looked at the GP, looked at the the Standard, and I was like, well, I'm going to play this Bant list on Arena. It took me to Mythic that week. I was like, all right, I guess I got to find a way to get Hydrate Grasses for this week.
Yeah.
Thank you, Morgan. Did you lend me one? No, you lent me.
Yeah.
You lent me one in Anissa. And then traded me that one, so that was sweet. I bought it in the deck after the tournament because like I had some store credit, but I was happy with that choice. But it's just crazy how like now if you look at like the Esper builds, even those decks you probably don't want to be playing Phoenix against with the multiple Disparks and the Ixalan's binding package, and you're just like, even if they have a lot of Phoenix starts, you have the cards to sort of navigate it. So it's I don't think it's a good like going to the Mythic Championship. I know we're going to talk about that here in a second, but like. It'll be interesting to see how well Phoenix fares, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think that'll be something to see, and realistically, like the metagame is dominated by 2 variants of Esper, based on what we're seeing in the Mythic Championship sort of metagame breakdown. So if it has become a difficult matchup for Phoenix, then I don't think it's gonna fare very well.
As far as the Bantic that I played, it was the 4th or 5th place list from the SCG Summer Championships. I literally played it card for card. I printed out a deck list by going to MTG Goldfish and clicking edit list and copy and pasting. Like that is how much work I did on an actual deck. When I saw those decks, I went, man, River's Rebuke with Teferi seems awesome. I wonder if there's a list that has that. And then that list had a River's Rebuke on the sideboard. I was like, you did it. You're my guy. But I really enjoyed the deck. It definitely has draws where you're playing 26 land and 12 mana creatures. Like, it has draws where you just play mana guys and lands and kind of die. But you get to play turn 2 Teferi. You get to play turn 3 Nissas. If you get to untap with a Nissa and like have a Hydrate Crassus, you just draw 5, 6, 7 cards at a time. It's very good.
It's just a disgusting Magic card, and I knew Nissa was disgusting. Like as soon as I got to play her in like my pre-release, and like my opponent wrathed me, killed 2 of my lands, and I still won that game. So it's like I know that card is most certainly absurd, and it is like. What was it compared to? It was compared to Gideon.
Yeah.
Ally Zendikar, and it does feel like that a lot of the time.
Yeah, I think when we first evaluated the card, I know I did this. I was looking at it being like, but like, does it matter if you get the mana ramp? Well, having played with it a bunch now, no, it actively doesn't. It doesn't matter. The tapping for an extra green thing is not relevant. Yes, it lets you play things like Mass Manipulation sometimes. It's good with Crassus. It's good with Shalai, but like that is secondary. You definitely are fine casting it with having no forests in play. Yeah. The thing that's really good at in this format is like it presents a crazy clock, and it just pressures planeswalkers. When your opponents play things like Narset and tick down, like it lets you just be like, oh, that's dead. I'm gonna kill your Teferi. I'm gonna kill it. I like the ability to snipe other planeswalkers in this format is something that I think if you go back to our Palooza, we didn't know how many planeswalkers were going to see play. We didn't know what was going to happen with that. And now that we know how many walkers are seeing play, Nissa has sort of established itself as this dominant thing in the format. So I think it's really good. The deck was really good. Tulsamir was a card that I hadn't gotten to cast very much, and it was also just very, very good, picking off other mana dorks, gaining life as you do it. What Morgan, you seem very quizzical. What's up?
I'm just looking at Legions then from Corset 2020.
Oh,
Exile target creature an opponent controls with converted mana cost 2 or less, and all other exile and all the creatures that the player controls with the same name as that creature.
oh, does it hit missile lands?
So yes, because all the creatures would be named Forest, right?
But it only exiles the creature versions of it, right? It doesn't just exile other forests, right? All other creatures with that name, right?
Sure.
Okay.
But also can strip out like lands from your opponent's hand and graveyard. Well, their hand.
Huh, I guess so.
Unless it says all cards with that name, not creatures.
Wow.
All cards with that name.
Neat.
That's a weird thing that can happen now, and I don't know how relevant that is at all whatsoever.
No, but I mean, most cards don't do that. That's something.
Yes, that's why I wanted to read. I was like, it doesn't say non-land,
No,
right?
because like that's one of the things that's very good for Nissa right now in the format.
So
So many-
diversify the lands you animate.
well, just like I had an opponent do that Thursday night. I was playing just a local standard event just to get some paper testing, and they were like, "Yeah, I'll take down my sword and return your deputy attention, target your forest." And I was like, "Nope."
Can't do that.
And like most cards say non-land, so Nissa benefits from that.
Big Teferi says
So-
non-land, which is very important.
it's a big deal. So I played the deck. I went 2-1 against Phoenix. I lost to a really good local player who just we had some absurdo draws. There's one sequence in game 2 I wish I could take back where I got double spell pierced, where I could have played around double spell pierce and like considered it and just didn't. It was mass manipulation for 2 Phoenixes. I could have just taken 1 and that probably would have safely like won me the race. But like he like molded and kept a 1-lander game 2 and kept a 1-lander game 3 as well, and I negated like his first draw spell and like still got crushed. So overall though, I think that matchup is pretty solid. And then I played the Mirror with person I've talked about a number of times here, good friend from the Northeast, Scotty Doolittle. He runs with the group we mentioned. Mr. Yusuf Bridges was there trying to run some crazy deck. I'm still waiting for a deck list, Yusuf, so send that over. But he messaged me this week and he's like, "Hey, convince me not to play 20 Mountains." And it was like, "Play this deck," because that's what convinced me not to play 20 Mountains. So we played the Mirror match, and he got me in game 3 by Mystic Snaking me, which is a card that like I don't like in the Mirror. And he's like, "I don't know how to sideboard. I took all these Teferis out and I Mystic Snaked you." And I was like, I deserve this. So I thought he knocked me out. I got the feature match round 7, which you can go and see. Comic Town did a good job doing some coverage. Former host of the show, Jordan Kennedy, as well as modern specialist Michael Coyle, were doing a good job with commentary. I went back and watched it. There was only one major mistake in my match, so that's exciting. And I didn't technically make it. I just didn't notice it. So if you watch that match, yes, the Runaways team should have died. It also should have had 400 counters on it afterwards. I'm aware of that as well, and we talked about that after the match. It was, just we played pretty quick. But no, they did a pretty good job. Talked about some stuff for next time, life total stuff, communication things. Having a spotter would be helpful. But just going back and listening to them do coverage and looking at it. I know you and I dabbled in it first. They were doing that with the company that Comic Town works with, and I'm happy to see them going forward and setting that up. Like I hope they continue to do that for other events, because it was cool to have a full feature match area. It was cool to have some coverage. I think that I don't know Michael super well, but like they did a good job there. But I know that like Jordan is someone who I would trust to do those things as well. I enjoyed his voice on here and miss him sometimes. But I won that match, and apparently 1x2 was going to get in, and I missed it on breakers and took 10th.
Ugh,
So
rough.
Which is gross. But like I don't think you can ever expect to get in at X2. So like I don't feel that bad about it. It was just like I got told after I won the match that like an X2 was live, so I let myself feel hopeful for a second and then got dashed again. So I just let myself get beaten twice. But Scotty ended up doing really well in the tournament and netting some cash for his wedding.
Yeah,
so,
made to the finals. So.
Yeah, so congrats to him, and I hope his fiance was very happy with him bringing home the winnings. So
I'm sure she was.
So I got my hug for the weekend, so that was good enough.
Yeah, but I mean, it was a fun time. We had some pretty good laughs throughout the entire tournament. Watching you and Scotty play in your very tense mirror match was funny to be among the peanut gallery for. So.
I think he's undefeated against me. Going all the way back to the first like TCG thing that we split the finals of a TCG 5K, but he still beat me in the finals. I think that worked out for me though, because like we split on our own, but he won it, So I think he messaged me like some months later. I was like, "Hey, I got screwed on taxes." I was like, "Ah." Can you delete that? That's probably gonna get me in trouble at some point, right? Like, nah, whatever. But I think like every time we've randomly played against each other, he's just like crushed me. So, that's fine. I should expect no less. But I felt like I was like, I did this to myself. You should have just shuffled up those mountains. That's what should have happened. So no, it was a great event. Another Aaron Hammer judged event. Who we've mentioned him on the show multiple times. Very very whole good judge staff. All of that. So I do wish more players had shown up. We had close to 100, but I think at the beginning of the season I was certain that was going to sell out. And I think like the nature of the MCQ has really shifted since the beginning of the season when they were all selling out. And I think that's frustrating because that doesn't reflect on Comic Town. And I don't think it reflects well on the format either. So,
honestly, no.
So it's
I do think that
almost a 100-player event is not bad by any stretch.
No.
But like
you hope it's more.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think that I definitely think that people have had a pretty bad taste in their mouth from everything that's kind of fallen out with the MCQ. So that I think that could be the case. So, obviously, something that we have to talk about is we have a Mythic Championship this weekend.
Well, you say obviously, like that doesn't mean anything. We don't have to talk about it.
I suppose not.
I do think this is fairly interesting. So I linked to the article that we got. So it's MC3 in Vegas.
It's a standard only
arena. Mythic Championship. There's a lot of other negativity surrounding it, and I think like we're going to avoid that for now. There's a lot of criticism to be levied at WotC. I don't think I would continue levying at the players individually.
Yeah, don't do that.
So, but one of the cool things we do get, because deck lists were submitted so early, we get a full Frank Karsten breakdown of numbers and him discussing actual lists for players beforehand. And when you talk about like getting closer to an esport, this article is pretty great because like if I'm going to go like if I'm looking for like if it's going to regular sports, like if I'm looking at a coverage of a series, a playoff series, this and that, man, give me all the numbers, give me all the breakdowns, the individuals versus each other, and I think like being able to go like here's the decks that are represented, here's the number one deck, here's some example deck lists from actual players in the event. This is something cool that we don't normally get to see at a Pro Tour. So I think that's cool.
Yeah, I definitely agree. It's when you take a look at it, you get to see like sort of the popular decks. You get a breakdown of that. You get to see how many challengers versus how many MPL members are playing each deck. From the numbers, we know that Esper Control is by far the most popular deck. We have a majority of, not a majority, but we have a lot of MPL players playing it. I think it's 12, and then 5 challenger players also playing the deck. And then, we could see like the most popular deck for the challengers actually is it Phoenix? And we even know that we're going to have 4 decks that are going to be automatically on day 2, due to the MPL league play that we've had. So we have 2 Esper Hero lists. We have a Bant ramp deck similar to what Mike played in the Boros Aggro. Actually already making it over to day 2 through their accomplishments. In the Pro League, the Pro League interleague play, and it's nice. It's nice to have kind of all the information up front. To be perfectly honest,
like just being able to click here and I can look at every player's deck list right now.
Yeah,
that's cool. I could go take I should be able to do this probably all the time, but I can go take these for a spin on Arena today and tomorrow and all leading up to the event, and I know how to play this. Most people probably wouldn't do that, but you could, and that's awesome.
Yeah, and we also get to see some fun rogue deck lists that are going to be there. So we know that Gruul mid range, which has existed for sure, in various forms and has varying levels of success, is definitely going to be a player by a couple of the MPL players. We know that 2 players are playing Civic Nexus. Those players are Emma Handy and Anna Burchett.
Yeah, who definitely tested together.
They tested together, and they decided to take this rogue strategy and tune it to what they likely expected the metagame to be, and are fairly confident about it. And that's an exciting thing to follow, because you can follow that if you follow them on Twitter where they announced it and see how that goes through and you'll be able to watch all of that kind of come to fruition. So it's definitely different. Like Mike and I were talking about this. Like it just feels so much different than a traditional Mythic Championship. And obviously no draft. That's something that you have to definitely consider.
I gotta say, that's the best draw to this event.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, it really is. Pro Tour drafts continue to be the worst things to watch. Now, Horizons could be different, but
Sure.
War of the Sparks left such a bad taste in my mouth with how, one, I think frustratingly not great that format is in Limited, but two, the whole, like, we don't know what anything's, like, what's good. Like, that is, sorry, I just get rid of it.
And it's definitely going to be something that is somewhat, I'm excited to see it. Like I was talking to Mike, I was like, I wonder how close the coverage is going to be to what we saw at the Invitational. The Invitational was like a really big deal, the highest money amount of tournament. This is still pretty high. It's what, 750,000, right?
Yeah, oh yeah.
So we're not far off from the Invitational numbers, and I'm excited to see what happens. I hope that it goes well. I hope that it's entertaining and engaging, and I hope that it still, gets people watching. It's weird because we're at the tail end of a format, what feels like something that might be close to being solved-ish, and we're on the verge of having a new set where, you just kind of have to think of what if. Like, what if this had come out like a month after it, but I don't know. Like,
right.
maybe that doesn't matter because you want your next, because the next one's modern, isn't it? Barcelona's modern.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, and it's Modern Horizons draft, right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! So like, you can't even be like, well, you want your next one to highlight the limited format of M20, and it's like, well, no, it doesn't even matter. It doesn't even make any sense. So we'll never. I don't know. I think it would be exciting. Like that's a way to get excited about something, is have it come out, near the set release, but maybe it just doesn't line up with what they're wanting. And that's
fair.
fine. I'm still going to watch it. Like I'm still going to because I want to see what it looks like. This is the first time that we've had something like this, and I want to see. But I guess we did have the Invitational, but this is the first time we had a Mythic Championship like this, and I want to see how they pull it off.
Yeah, I do too. I'm definitely going to be watching to see how it goes with that.
What are the odds of a challenger winning, do you think? We have some pretty good challengers, no doubt. They may not be on the MPL, but they are. We have some very, in my opinion, very professional Magic players already. That's how they make their living. So
Kai Buddha is in the challengers list, so like a
yeah,
challenger could win. I don't know what else to tell you.
Man has his own Magic card.
Yeah. I think this is an interesting event. Even in consideration to like the Mythic Invitational, where this event is maybe not as inbred as the Mythic Invitational was, as far as deck selections, but doesn't have a stupid format.
Right.
So I think that because of the knowledge of deck lists and because of the expected metagame being on point, honestly, I think a challenger could win. You talk about like Emma Handy, Autumn Burchett, Autumn's MPL, but Emma.
Yeah.
Tuning decks for an expected metagame and maybe hitting it on the head. It could be it. I think that there's a couple. Is it Amazonian who's playing like Selesnya tokens? You know what I mean? Just something a little off the beaten path. You could be really rewarded if if you built a deck that could beat Esper, both versions of it pretty consistently, and Esper's 25% of the expected metagame. You know what I mean? You're not an event where like 25% means 1 of 400. You're talking about 25% meaning 1 of 60. So like that percentage means a lot more to the individual match you're talking about. Like when a deck reaches 12%, like 12% of people at this Pro Tour play this thing. Yeah, well you're talking about 500 people, so 12 in every 100. But here you're talking about like an actual like smaller population size. You could just play Esper all day. So I think a challenger has a fair shot to win this. And I think also just the prestige of a number of challengers anyways. I mean, when LSV is a challenger, yeah, a challenger could win it. When Kai Buddha is a challenger, yeah, a challenger could win it. But I definitely think that like just on deck selection alone, if you know your matchups in this metagame, then like, yes, player matters. I'm going to make a bold statement here, especially in regards to Arena. I think some of the better players in the world lose an edge on Arena that they have in Paper. I've beaten a lot of the higher ranked players in the world on Arena in the last month while I'm sitting in my boxer shorts eating cereal. You know what I mean? Like, I don't mean that to sound like, sad or whatever. If it does, like, whatever. I had a great time eating cereal, but like, going like, oh, cool, I'm playing against like, who did I play? Andrei Skrotsky I beat last week while I was testing. Like, oh, cool, I beat There's something to be said. Like, even when you're sitting across from them, like it's on a screen, I think there's some of that intimidation is lost, and I think Arena takes away some of your abilities to outplay your opponent at times. So I, just with like if you don't have every weird stop accounted for, or like weird things like if you don't automatically set things like you won't get priority back in your end step and stuff like that. Like you better have full control on all the time, which they probably will, but. I don't know. There's something about like I think like once you're at that event, once you're sitting there on those computers, I don't think it matters if you're MPL or a challenger. I think you have a fair shot.
Fair enough. I like that.
So,
I like that assessment.
I think in the Mythic Invitational is a little bit different, and some of those players are here, and we saw some of those Invitational players make some pretty gruesome mistakes. But I think like most of the challengers here are on a better level, if that makes sense, on a higher level. And I think there's a difference in testing prestige-wise for a Pro Tour Mythic Championship versus the Mythic Invitational. And again, a real format. I can't say that enough. It's a real format with sideboarding. Yeah. Like
the real format is definitely something that's important.
You being prepared for a actual deck means something when that means you can also sideboard for it and change your game plan to tailor it. So, yeah, I think a challenger can win, for sure. Is it stacked for the MPL? Absolutely. 4 of them get automatic buys into day 2. Yes, it's stacked for the MPL.
Yeah.
But yes, I think challengers can win.
Fair enough. That's a good answer.
Thanks. It was really long-winded, so I apologize if you're looking for something a little shorter. And that was both for Morgan and you, the listener at home.
Listener. I'm pretty sure they like hearing you talk. If they didn't, then I don't know why they listen to the podcast, to be perfectly honest.
Because you talk more than me, so that's it.
Yeah, I don't really say much.
I'm just here for the intros and the outros.
That's all. I just like the Mega Man music. That's it.
I listen to you, and I listen to Arena Decklist Cast because of the video game music, and I turn it off.
The sweet, sweet Mega Man tunes.
Oh, man.
But I don't think there's anything more that I really want to discuss about this. I'm excited to discuss after everything is said and done. I do think that, hopefully, Magic 2020 will kind of spice things up for Standard, because I think like it's fairly solved. I think it's going to slow down. I think like we've seen kind of what the format can do, and you have some viable options that you can play, and maybe Esper, is the 51% deck, or that you can play and like have a pretty good matchup against most everything. The Jund deck of the format,
it does feel like the Jund deck,
as it
sure.
were, and maybe that's what a lot of people will play, and then you have a bunch of different varying archetypes that are levels of popular versus not popular. But like I said, I'm excited to see what happens with it, and it's going to be coming here on Friday. So
I want to make mention 3 random things.
Sure.
First off, 2 players who are playing decks I would never expect them to pick. Andrew Cuneo, what's he playing?
He's playing Gruul midrange.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's very wild.
Reed Duke, what's he playing?
He's playing Grixis.
Grixis Bolus. What?
I was looking at all the deck lists. I was like, okay, all right.
But third thing I want to mention, I agree. We talked about this. I've had some stretches on Arena now where Esper is the deck du jour. Like whether it's hero, whether it's not, and the percentages here suggest that. It would be sad if Standard is very quickly like. We've had such a fast-paced Standard format moving back and forth, and a number of decks have gotten left entirely in the dust. If we're at a Pro Tour and Autumn Burchett isn't playing Mono Blue, that deck's dead. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? There's not a single copy of, like, Jeskai Walkers. Like, I can't believe how quickly a deck went from being, like, winning, like, 4 slots in the top 8, dominating a format, to dead, completely unplayable.
I mean, that just shows how powerful a card like the Elder Spell is.
Yeah, that's true, I suppose. We talked about how that card was very powerful.
Nissa.
Or Nissa, too, just, like, things that can hit Planeswalkers so consistently. And even, like, obviously the format has adapted for a number of reasons, but those cards in particular, you have Esper playing 2 to 3 copies of the Elder Spell in the main, like
and just like think about Jessica Control and like the once people figured out like mass manipulation, like you don't want to be playing the deck anymore because you can't like if they're banned, like you can't play counter spells. Like what are you going to do, bud? Like
Right.
like you're smoked once they like take 3 of your planeswalkers. You're like, cool, this is fun.
Yeah,
it's not fun.
Okay, that's filled with it. I think it's interesting though because like one of the other popular decks this weekend is the mono right, either Boros or Azorius versions of it, and I think like when you look at that, if you're playing against Azorius Control or Esper Control, which has the Kaya's Wraths, sure, but there's not another straight up Predator for that deck in the format right now. Like I think a lot of decks can piecemeal good matchups against it. Like Bant Ramp does fine things against it, but if there's no deck that's just here playing like Deafening Clarion anymore, you know what I mean? That seems crazy to me, and I think like you could just see like white aggro sort of spike this because if they don't see a lot of Kaya's Wraths, then they can conceivably win every matchup. So I think that's something to also to consider and to think about, like, is how this format has shifted. So even though it's like slowing down, maybe it's slowing to these are accepted things, there are still counterpoints within those things.
Yeah.
And like go look at all the builds of like Bant Ramp, for example. They are way different. Mm-hmm. Some have 4 Teferi, some have no Teferi, some have the Explore package, some have very few creatures. Like it is really interesting to see the builds of that. And you look at Gruul, like what's your 4-drop? Is your 4-drop Phoenix? Is your 4-drop Ferox? Like what is it? So I think like even as the format gets there, we have such a big standard format, and it's going to get a little bit bigger. I think it's still cool to see those individual choices.
Yeah.
I sent a picture in our Discord playing against Hugh Jensen, who was playing Gruul here, and I sent a picture while I was playing the Bant deck of us being in a board state where I had an 11-12 Shalai, like a 12-12 or a 13-13 Lyra, and a couple other creatures as I was just flooding out, and I was just activating that twice a turn, and he had this Gruul board. I was like, well, eventually I'm going to get there with this, and then watched him draw a Ripjaw Raptor, and start shooting his Ripjaw Raptor for 1. Every turn, sometimes 2 or 3 times a turn to draw cards, and then he beat me with Domri's Ambush.
Yeah,
which I see here. He has 3 copies here compared to some. That's not a standard thing in the rule decks. Domri's Ambush, right?
It's becoming like more of a thing.
It's becoming more of a thing. But like when he did that, I got totally blown. I was like, well, eventually I will just like have a 40-40 Shalai, and who cares? Like you can't attack and do it. So, oh nope, I died. Weird.
I'm dead.
And I think like when you look at those things like that. That's an interesting choice in Gruul, and you can see where the applications are super important. And so I think like even as standard maybe gets a little bit smaller, those individual card choices lead to a meta game, and that's cool. So.
I agree. But yeah, so that's going to be everything for this week's show. Again, if you want to reach out to us, you can do so via a few various methods. You can reach us at Twitter. It's your NSTEP is our handle. When you add us, it's at your NSTEP. We do have a email. It's at yourNSTEP@gmail.com. And then lastly, we have Facebook, facebook.com/@yourNSTEP.
And Patreon.
Yeah, Patreon.
You said lastly.
Yeah, that's the ways to contact us. You can contact us through Patreon if you're a patron.
Patron, then send us a message.
You can certainly do that. It's patreon.com/@yourNSTEP. They have a lovely messaging system that you can send us direct messages, all that you could ever want and desire, and we will reply back to you. If you are listening to us via a podcast application that allows you to leave a rating or review, we would appreciate it. We really feel that we're a 5-star podcast over here. And then if you're listening to us via legit MTG, be sure to check out some of the other articles they have, and check out their online store to purchase your singles wherever you are in the continental United States. I imagine they probably ship to a lot more places, but I'm gonna say continental United States just to be sure. We also we already did Patreon. See, you messed up my flow. Yeah, go back to Patreon again. Patreon. Patreon. Another a quick thank you again to Comic Town. They are going to be having that a modern IQ this Saturday, the 22nd. So be sure to check that out. But that's going to be everything for us this week. We'll catch you next time. You have a great one. Bye.